So recently I had a conversation with a farmer. It wasn't a lengthy conversation, it was only about 3 minutes long, but there was a lot of interesting sort of takeaways from it. So yeah, basically today I'm going to be doing a reaction video where we're going to go through what was said and try and sort of analyse some of the points and why he said what he said.
I'm a farmer.
Are you?
Yeah.
I just want to start by saying that I had no idea who this guy was, and as soon as he said, I'm a farmer, I didn't really know how to react because I was thinking, okay, it's either one of two. He could either be an animal farmer or he could be a plant farmer. So I acted with a bit of enthusiasm, but then I didn't want to say, what do you farm, in case it was an animal, and I didn't want to objectify them, which is why I started off the conversation like this.
Who do you farm?
What do I farm?
Or
beef,
what?
Beef and sheep.
Cows and...
Yeah, the way that he said beef and sheep here, we always hear this, people using those kind of terms to describe animals. So like, I kill my beef. You kill a cow. You don't farm a beef, you farm cows. And it's just a way of them sort of detaching with the actual individual to make themselves feel better about what they're doing.
Cows and sheeps.
Yeah, lamb.
So I kind of corrected him. So cows and sheeps. Obviously the plural for sheeps is sheep, but I don't really feel 100% comfortable with using the term because you're kind of taking away each sheep's individuality and lumping them into this whole sheep. I think that language is very, very important, and we should always be focused on what we say and how we say it, because I don't want my language to negatively impact anyone else.
Yeah.
Now I know that you're showing the worst.
Are we showing standard practice?
Yeah, I know.
So he's just said, I know you're showing the worst, and then when I said we're showing standard practice, he said, yeah, I know. I think he's just here maybe trying to make himself feel a little bit better, because obviously the footage isn't very nice to see. I can't particularly remember what kind of footage he was watching at this point. But yeah, it's easy for people to say, oh yeah, that's horrible, but you know, it doesn't happen all the time, or it's just a few rare cases. But no, this is the reality, which is why I asked him this question coming up.
What happens?
Yeah,
Do you
but you're not showing the good ones either, are you?
How do you kill an animal in a good way? Do you follow the animals that you farm to the slaughterhouse and watch them be killed?
So yes, I asked him a couple of questions here because he said you don't show the good ones, but even the very best of farms, you know, with the highest welfare, in the best possible case scenario, an animal has to be killed in order to get the end product. We could argue back and forth all day about the farms aren't good because, you know, they do this or they do this, but then ultimately they're going to get killed, and it's never ever ever good. And I also asked him if he goes to the slaughterhouse with his animals and watches them be killed. I've seen farmers, you know, they come, they drop off their animals, they kind of detach themselves and, you know, forget what's happening, and then they drive off. But yeah, I wasn't sure in this particular scenario. He said he has. So yeah, I asked him what he thinks about it.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
What
all
do you
have
think
to
of
die.
that? They don't have to.
They do have to.
They all have to die. Yeah, obviously they all have to die. Humans have to die, but that doesn't give someone the right to go and take their life whenever they want. So obviously nobody's immortal. I think that's probably just something that he tells himself, like, oh, I've got to take them to the slaughterhouse because it has to happen. They have to die. It's part of life. And that's kind of how he justifies it and gets around it, by telling himself that. There's obviously some discomfort within him.
No, they don't. They don't have to.
They can't keep living forever.
No, they don't have to be bred into existence to be exploited
No,
and then
exactly.
killed.
They don't have to be bred, but the population needs cheap food.
Yeah, and we can transition to a plant-based food system.
Do you not think that plant foods can be cheap? What about all of the rice, beans, legumes, lentils? All of the cheapest things in the supermarket are vegan. You can live vegan on a budget. The animal kind of products aren't all that cheap anyway. Maybe I could have addressed that. Obviously in the moment it was getting a little bit heated and I didn't want him to feel attacked. I think at the time I probably felt that it was more important to tell him that I'm not against him. I'm just against what it is that he's doing.
So we're not against farmers. I have nothing against farmers, you know, but I do have something against what they do to the animals, you know.
Well, I won't talk to you forever because I disagree with you.
Why?
Why?
Because you're not in their position.
Yeah, so this is he walks off and he starts walking off. But, you know, obviously I'm going to respond. I'm not just going to say, oh, okay, see you. Like, you know, if I'm not going to chase him down the street, but if he says something, I'm going to respond. He could choose to ignore me if he wants to. I'll keep talking until someone walks off, you know, because animals' lives are at stake. Some people are like, oh, he's trying to get away. But, you know, I'm not physically restraining him or anything.
That's why you disagree, because it's not you who's suffering, you know? But if you were one of your victims...
If I was being trodden on, yeah.
So, yeah, it's quite good of him to admit that, because I feel that a lot of the times people are very disingenuous about their feelings and emotions. It's interesting how he admitted that, and I'm surprised he stuck around because, yeah, I think some people would have... probably walked off or maybe got angry, because it's a very emotive topic, especially, you know, for a farmer who's doing this day in, day out. And, you know, I can imagine from their perspective that this is a conversation they just can't be having. If they're to do their job, they can't afford to have this kind of conversation because it will just make what they do more difficult. I think he's quite honest, and he's just kind of reiterating some of the things that he kind of not believes to be true, but things that he's been told and things that he tells himself.
Yeah, so, but old Schwarzenegger and all those lots who are now into plant-based, the world can't survive.
On plants, we can.
No, you can't.
Yeah, why not?
Eh?
I was really invested in this conversation. I really wanted to understand why he thought what he thought. Why is it that he thinks the world can't survive on a plant-based diet? Why would that not be possible?
Why not?
Because you need the protein, you'll all be anemic.
No.
Maybe he's getting mixed up with protein and iron, which is absolutely fine because obviously he's a farmer, he's not a nutritionist.
You know where protein comes from, right?
Yeah, from soya and...
From plants?
Yeah, from plants.
Yeah.
So we feed the soya to the chickens.
Yeah, so basically when you're vegan, you just eat the nutrients directly from the source, from the plants themselves, rather than filtering them through the body of an animal.
Yeah, so he knows where protein comes from.
Who doesn't need to or want to die, you know?
But we have to have some excitement, but some interest in the food that we're eating.
Yeah, so now he's moving on to the pleasure. We've been through cost, nutrition. Now he's gone on to pleasure. I mean, there's not a single thing that he could say that... I don't know what he expects or what people expect in these situations, like as if we've not heard them 1,000 times before, as if we're going to be like, oh, yeah, actually, true, you're right. We do need a bit of excitement, so let's just start killing animals.
Yeah, you don't think vegan food can be interesting?
You can eat it every now and then, but it just gets a bit boring.
Well, it depends what you're eating.
Yeah,
you obviously haven't had good vegan food.
I think that when people have grown up eating a certain kind of diet, they're almost afraid to go vegan because they think they're just never going to enjoy food again. When people say like, oh, we eat plants, you think of like vegetables, you think of like spinach and like a salad and stuff, but maybe using the term plant-based is better, or vegan food, because when it's plant-based, you can make anything out of plants. It doesn't have to be plants explicitly. I think that the taste thing as well, I think that a lot of it is like mental, not like mental as in like insane, but I think a lot of it is like there's a mental barrier because people are comparing the plant-based alternatives to the other products. So they're drinking the plant milk and they're thinking about cow's milk, so they're thinking about the taste that they've always experienced, and it tastes different, and you're going to be like, ooh. But then if you drink a carton of orange juice and you close your eyes and you think about plant milk, that orange juice is going to taste horrible because it's not what you're expecting. But that doesn't mean that orange juice is horrible. And I think also it's like a fear of what it actually is. I remember before I was vegan and I went to like some kind of like food expedition, and I had a plant-based nugget. It was like a sample, and yeah, I was like under pressure to try it. And I remember deciding that I didn't like it before I'd even tried it, because I was like, this is so weird, like what even is it? It's some kind of like mushy thing. It sounds weird now because obviously I was eating rotting corpse. But when I went vegan, I knew that the animal-based products weren't an option, and I didn't have the desire to kind of eat them anymore, so I wasn't making the comparison. That's my views on that. I think it's also very important to mention pleasure doesn't justify an action. Obviously that's the most important point, but I think it's important to mention both.
But even if it wasn't, even if it tasted like cardboard, you know,
So
what do you think is more important, someone's life or our taste pleasure?
Someone's life.
Yeah,
That's not someone. That's a thing.
It's not a thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, this is something that he tells himself. Animals are absolutely someone. I actually had somebody who was supposedly vegan who called me out on a video that I did recently, and he said, why are you referring to this animal as someone? They're not someone, and we need to start using the proper language, otherwise people who eat animals won't take us very seriously, and they'll just get stuck on the language that we're using, and then it'll be a barrier to getting them to go vegan. He was saying somebody refers to a person and a person is a human. No, animals are people as well. They haven't got personhood status as of yet, but they have been granted personhood status before. If you search up Pablo Escobar's cocaine hippos, they were granted the status of personhood in a court of law. They have personalities, they have persona, they're people. I think their response was, well, if I saw a person walking down the road, they had like 3 dogs that they were walking, I wouldn't say, oh, there's 4 people walking down the road. Well, no, you probably wouldn't, but you also wouldn't say, oh, there's 4 animals walking down the road, even though technically she is an animal. I think it's really important that we don't use the same language as the language that the meat, egg and dairy industries use, because if we do that, we're doing them a huge favour. We're reducing animals to the status that they want people to reduce them to. If we're advocating for change, the language that we're using needs to reflect that.
You think they're an inanimate object?
Yeah, I do. I think they're bred to...
No, you believe that in your brain because it makes your job easier.
Okay.
When you send them to slaughter, it's
yeah.
easier to think that they're things rather than ones,
yes.
because it allows you to do what you do.
Yeah.
Look at the background there. That was not planned, by the way. That is a big coincidence. On farms, in slaughterhouses, time and time again, we see animals being abused, animals being violated. And I don't just mean in the standard, like, accepted ways. I mean abused as in, like, they've been hit, they've been kicked, they've been subject to, you know, these exposés where the farms, they get dropped from the red tractor scheme or the RSPCA assured or whatever, whoever's, like, putting their stamp on because they've broken some rules or whatever. But it's no wonder that this is happening if farmers are viewing animals as things. They have to remove themselves from the animal as an individual in order to actually do their job. And it's ironic as well, because there's so many people who are like, oh, farmers love their animals, they treat them really well. If they loved their animals, they won't be able to do what they do. Think about a family member, maybe a dog or a cat in your home. We would never send them to a slaughterhouse to be killed. Some people die trying to protect the ones that they love. They would never send them to their death. So yeah, they can't love them. And because they detach themselves from the animals, they're constantly subject to horrific treatment that goes far beyond the horrors that they experience anyway. Farming is bad enough with the practices that are actually allowed, and time again they're being violated because they're just seen as commodities, money-making machines.
You know? Yeah. But you could transition to like a plant-based farming system where no one will be suffering or being killed.
Yeah, so that's it. I thought it was an interesting conversation. Let me know what you thought in the comments, anything that I could have done better or addressed better. Hopefully I'll get to have more conversations with farmers. Maybe I could go to like a farmer's market or something. Thank you for watching.